In the dark, a phone screen glows like a confession booth. One message arrives, then another. "Good morning, my love. I miss you. I can't wait until we're finally together." Then, almost casually, the turn. "I just need one small favor." Behind screens like these, victims have lost savings, retirement accounts, and years of trust to people they never met in person. The question is not simply how money gets stolen. It is how affection, routine, and hope get turned into weapons. This is a case file collection, not a love story. 10 real inspired romance scam stories. 10 different masks. One repeated pattern. These scams rarely begin with a demand. They begin with patience, attention, daily check-ins, a future carefully written one message at a time. Every story in this list uses a slightly different persona: a gentleman, a soldier, a doctor, an investor. But the method keeps returning in disguise. The scammer studies what the victim needs to hear, then builds a relationship strong enough to survive doubt. Case File 1 was the kind of story that sounded safe at first. The perfect gentleman. Susan met him on Facebook. He presented himself as a widower working overseas. He was polite without being pushy, attentive without seeming desperate, and steady in a way that made suspicion feel unfair. For months, his messages arrived every morning and every night. He remembered details. He asked about Susan's day. He offered sympathy when she felt lonely and warmth when she felt hopeful. Most importantly, he did not ask for money. Not at the beginning. That restraint became the proof Susan trusted. Nearly a year passed before the emergency appeared. He said customs officials had frozen his bank account while he was overseas for work. It was temporary, he explained. Embarrassing. He hated asking. Could Susan help just this once so he could clear the issue and come home? The first wire transfer felt like support, not risk. The second felt necessary because the first had already happened. Then came legal fees, release fees, and one final payment after another. By the time the story collapsed, Susan's retirement savings were gone. She had never met the man whose crisis had emptied her future. Case File 2 used a different costume: the soldier. Jeremy believed he was in a relationship with a U.S. Army officer stationed overseas. The profile looked legitimate. The photos showed uniforms, bases, and the kind of disciplined confidence people are trained to trust. Every message sounded sincere, and every delay had an explanation tied to service, duty, or restricted communication. The first request was small enough to silence alarm: gift cards for internet access. A practical problem with a practical solution. Jeremy sent them. Once that line had been crossed, the asks grew. More cards, more fees, more reasons the person he cared about just needed a little help to stay connected. Over 6 months, Jeremy sent more than $40,000. Later, investigators traced the photographs to an actual soldier's social media account. The person in the pictures had no idea Jeremy existed, but by then, the money was gone, and the emotional damage had already been done. That is the trap hidden inside the early requests. They seem modest, reasonable, even compassionate. But by the time money enters the conversation, trust has already been built, tested, and rehearsed. The victim is no longer evaluating a stranger. The victim is protecting a relationship that feels real. If this case file helped clarify the pattern, share it with someone you care about. Subscribe for more fraud awareness stories designed to make these tactics easier to spot before the damage is done. And remember, the lesson running through all 10 cases: protect your heart before your wallet, because trust is the first thing these criminals steal.